Have you been in a situation where you're creating this perfect interaction, this perfect story beat, this perfect battle for your friends, for your players, and you spend so much of your own free time and effort into making it possible? Maybe during your lunch period at work, you're like, yo, let me get these ideas brewing. Let me start writing stuff down. You bring out your notes app on your phone, you start typing things down. Maybe later on in the day when you're like, after you come home and relax, you're like, yo, let me start writing it. So you open the Google Doc and you spend multiple hours of your day, maybe across multiple days, where you're thinking like this and doing this, and you putting this perfect story together for your friends that is the apotheosis of what you're capable of doing as a storyteller, and you're simply enthralled with the possibility of making something that is so beautifully thought out that your friends have no option but to stand up and start applauding you and praising you for being such a great orator of this story that we're playing together. So you get all these things together. You and your friends get the date set up. So you get your dice, you get your divider, you get your notes and everything packed up. Maybe you're doing it online, so you open up Discord, you upload everything you need up to Foundry. You're getting so excited, and the day finally arrives. So you arrive with your friends. All of you are laughing, cheering before the session starts, and the session just begins without a hitch. You and your friends are there, happy, excited. You're out there like, ooh, this is going perfectly planned, and things are progressing. You're like, oh, here we come. The story beat. I spend so much time, planning, and this interaction, this battle is about to occur. Then all of a sudden, when your players make a decision that is completely not in line with anything you expected out of them, and you're like, okay, it's fine. We can pivot. It's fine. We're good. We're good here. It's maybe just a little bit janky, but it's still going to end up in the same place. And then another player, then piggybacks off of them. And then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, that person's not supposed to be here. Or this is supposed to be a little more, dramatic, but things are still calm. So that's fine. It's fine. Maybe something won't happen. Maybe that guy survives at the end, but that's fine. Things are going to be ultimately fine. And then another decision happens where you realize that half your plan's already out the window, but it's fine. We can improv. So that's perfect. That's what D&D is all about, baby. So you start going for it. You're like, oh yeah, this guy who was supposed to be a little minor character, a little throwaway guy, is all of a sudden like, hey, let's get things moving. And then another decision happens where it's like, oh, the battle I just planned is not gonna happen. And you're like, oh, my Lanta, how did this become like a political espionage campaign? These friends of mine barely know what a dictionary is, and all of a sudden the dictionary's better than mine. It's like, oh no. So you start planning. It's like, okay, let's do a little improv, Then you start trying to moving things around. Maybe you can still end up somewhere where you wanted. And then slowly but surely throughout the entire session, this whole idea you have planned, this whole perfect situation that was meticulously planned through many days is suddenly out the window, and you're just spewing stuff right out your bottom. You are just improving out of everything. You feel like you ruined it. You feel like your friends hate it. You feel like you're such a horrible DM, and then maybe you shouldn't do this anymore, but maybe you're not cut out. Maybe Brennan Lee Mulligan's the only DM that's good at anything, and you're panicking, you're wondering, and then your friends at the very end are like, yo, that was amazing, that was great. And you sit there to yourself and you're thinking, did they just create something better than I just wrote? Let's talk about it. I'm the Driftful DM, or Jordan. Yes, new shirt, different day, don't worry about it. And today's kind of small little video is going to be mostly about, how improv and, not making everything so detailed and oriented in a session can also lead to very good and meaningful experiences that you could have with your players, friends, whatever the situation might be. Because often I find myself, and I see a lot of other people doing, is fall into that classic thing of, missing the forest for the tree, focusing so much on the small, minutia of everything, how things are going to play out, having a script for certain people and how they're going to react and do all of this, that a lot of times we forget that it's almost like the randomness that we encounter, or the stuff we didn't prep for, is that the stuff that our players, our friends, are the ones who are really wanting something like that. Something that's not so, I guess, pressing of matter. A lot of times I've noticed that my friends, my sweet dear friends, they actively see the story I'm laying out, but then they just find the smallest thing I offhandedly mention and they stick to that, and they won't let it go for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. sessions. So, that's the kind of situation we're dealing with. As a DM, as you're planning, as a storyteller, you do through all of this. You put in so much effort in the main story, different key plot points. Maybe they're propping up this one guy, but you mention one offhanded comment about like writing on a paper, and they stick to that, and they spend the next hour just laughing about that to themselves. And I'm over it, but at the same time, they're having a good time, and that's great. And other times where it's like when you have this large oriented plan, ready to go into motion, but your friends decide to actually play in a manner that you didn't expect of them. Maybe they're not going to be like, head, strong and just go running into the situation and go hacking and slashing. Maybe instead they decided more stealth, or they decided to disguise themselves and sneak into a situation, or, kind of mingle with a crowd they weren't supposed to, or something like that, something where your players might, I guess, not defy expectations, but subvert them, as a DM, because you might consider your players to be like, oh, they would like to do this, but then when they try to go a different route and maybe they want to be more stealthy instead of being, stabbing everyone on the side, they're like, oh wow, that completely changes the plan or something. And that's mostly how a lot of good situations like that, as a DM, that can be a little bit scary when you plan for your group to like maybe go into this battle and like very, hit the ground running, and leave no survivors, do this and that. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, let's kind of like infiltrate the ranks a little bit and see how we can. And then it's like, oh, wait, I had no plans for that. So you quickly have to pivot and you have to improv. And then it's very much, off, off the cuff of how you talk. And all of a sudden this character who is maybe supposed to have like 1-2 lines in a battle, that's it, all of a sudden is now a kind of a figurehead or like the mouthpiece for a whole group of people. This like kind of captain only by just appearance, because you want to differentiate, hey, this guy is technically more stronger, he has more spell slots, so you pick like a player, the character icon that displays that. But all of a sudden it's like, oh, he has to talk now. Oh, I had no idea for his personality. So you kind of throw something out there, and then as you're actively coming up with things to say, your players are coming up to say, so it's naturally kind of like almost melting each other like that way. And that can lead to a lot of fun situations, a lot of fun stuff with just the natural improv of how it comes out and how it develops from a very organic and non, railroad way of, producing these moments. But that's not to say that every single moment has to be like organically produced through that manner. A situation like that can also be produced through a more, concentration on the story, on the path he's laid out before. A lot of times I've noticed in that my experiences, it's like kind of like just those like Mad Libs books where it's like, hey, fill in the adjective, noun, and stuff like that. It's basically, hey, you lay out a general path that your players can follow, and there you go. You can go here, and then maybe with this interaction you kind of leave it very open-ended in how they interact with it and how they do it. Yeah, because that's mostly the conducive way of trying to get a decent story out of a whole, a friend group of playing D&D together. When you try to plan and script things to making yourself thinking like Martin Scorsese, like, yes, scene's gonna be shot, like it's gonna happen like this, it's gonna occur like that, he's gonna talk, then he's gonna talk, then she's gonna talk, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they're just talking about this guy George in the corner, the gnome that doesn't exist, but it now exists because they willed it into like reality. It's like, oh, cool, I guess George is in the corner at every interaction they have now. Cool, fun, whatever. It's not like I purposely spent like multiple hours looking at Google Doc or something making a story. That's what how do we strike a balance between the whole improv and the very off the cuff type of stuff and the more leaded direction of like having a story? Because you having one extreme and one and the other is, for most parties, if not all of them, is not going to be a fun time. If you have a completely no design route, no hook for your campaign, no motivations for your characters, it's always just like, hey, random interactions that your friends have with the, some random characters, players you put in this world. Maybe for a session or two that could be fun, but after a while, if there's nothing to grip your friends into wanting to play this campaign of yours, play in this world of yours, and they have no reason to like go for it. They have no motivation. They have no, kicking the caboose to get things rolling, to keep on, talking, to maybe find this way, maybe go find the, wizard in the woods that people have offhandedly mentioned once in a while. But if you have no like direction or no way to push them, that doesn't really happen, and then you just kind of left in the corner like, oh, how do I do this? So being completely off the cuff and improv and everything can maybe be fun for a session or two, but ultimately not the best way to go about it. And on the opposite side of the coin, you have something where it's only your story and nothing deviates from that. It's like in this world that has like these set rules, and you make your character say to them, it's like, oh no, spells can only be cast from like 3 p.m. to 3:42 p.m. Anytime outside of that, you explode, and you're like, oh, cool. I guess I'll just talk to George in the corner again. It's like, well, yeah, you want to let your players have a certain amount of freedom, a certain amount of, say in the world, whether to make their background known in a certain situation, or let the characters kind of personality bleed into the different aspects of how you play. That's the stuff you want from it. And I would say that it's so easy saying that, oh yeah, it's easy, just find that middle ground. It's easy, just between those two and you're perfect. Because for every DM and every group, it's going to be completely different. Maybe your players have a lot of buy-in. Maybe they understand like, hey, let's get the story going, so they're willing to follow the breadcrumbs, and they're willing to buy into stuff easily. Oh, you want me to go kill this random wizard over there for 4 pence? I don't bet pence, but sure, yeah, that doesn't work here, but cool. And yeah, so you go for it. And other times you might have players that like for some reason or another they have a vendetta against God himself, or and you're there like, my lantern, dude, this man is actively stabbing your in-game father. So let's make sure let's just really follow, work with me here before I actually stab you out of game father in Minecraft. There you go, in jeopardy. But yeah, it's mostly just trying to find that balance for yourself and your group. Me saying like, hey, it's going to be like this, so you're going to go this way or that way. Oh, just do this, have, A, B, C, or D ways of doing it. It's easy. It's so easy for me to just sit here and be like, yeah, just do this, this, and this. Because maybe this, and this doesn't work for you, but maybe for your group, maybe being a little more loose for them could be a lot easier and a lot more fun and conducive to your storytelling abilities and how the campaign progresses. Maybe for you want to be a lot more stringent. Maybe you need to calm down your group of friends, corral them a little bit because they can get a little too out of sorts, and maybe get a little too big for their own britches, and maybe decide to do things they might not actually want, because honestly a lot of players don't know what they actually want. So you kind of have to like either slightly dangle it in front of them, or sometimes just shove the keys in the face like, this is what you want, and they're like, okay, there we go, fun. So yeah, it's mostly a learning experience, and there's a way of doing it that's different for everyone. Maybe you, like I said before, a little more, maybe a little less over here, just the amount of times you go and play with your group, how many campaigns you have. Sometimes people figure out in the first couple sessions of a campaign, they figure it out, they get the ball rolling, and they're like, okay, yeah, so this is the kind of pace. Other times it might take a whole campaign to figure out the kind of storytelling of a group that's maybe a little more difficult and not so, I guess, new to DnD. Maybe a group that wants a little more of a hook, and maybe it needs to be given a lot of motivation to push forward, so you have to find cool and interesting ways besides like, hey, big bad evil guy over there. So stuff like that. That's kind of like a learning experience that every DM and every player is going to have to go through. A level of buy-in, a level of way to create a good hook that your players want to go through, that your friends want to spend time of like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4 times a month even, to figure out the story and try to play it. And it's mostly just trying to a balancing act of how you can do it. It's something you just have to learn for yourself, and something you're going to have to, figure out and such. So that's mostly, it's mostly just take some time and experience. There's no time like the present, so just go stop a random session with some bozo under this, bridge and be like, yo, let's go play D&D, as he tries to, mug you for, some crack money. But that's gonna be pretty cool, and that's a learning experience right there in itself. So yeah, so I mean, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty. So yeah, it's kind of a shorter video today, mostly because, coming off a little bit of the Thanksgiving kind of festivities and stuff like that, I didn't really have too much plan in terms of video making, and then I was like, oh wait, I should probably make a video. I had this idea for the last 2 weeks, and it's like, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it the next couple days, I'll do it after Thanksgiving. Well, it's after Thanksgiving, so here we are. So hopefully y'all like it. It's kind of on the shorter side, like I said. It's more of a yapping kind of stream of consciousness type of video, and not like any other video is different. To be perfectly in mind, I'm just gonna start saying words, and hopefully it comes out in a correct manner and not me just yelling 6-7 half the time. So yeah, but hopefully y'all enjoy. Hopefully I have 1 or 2 more videos posted. It might be more on the focus side of stuff, maybe a little more on a topic that I want, but I need to figure out that it's kind of just all up in the air right now. You know what, your slop will come in eventually, you know, your daily gruel will be here, you know, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I hope y'all doing okay. I hope y'all had a good Thanksgiving. I hope y'all have a good, you know, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. If you don't celebrate all of those, I hope that if you're at school or work, you kind of just have a cool day off. That's pretty cool to be, yes. So yeah, but I have nothing pretty much else to say, and I'm done yapping for today. I know that's surprising, but yeah, I hope y'all had a good day, good night. I hope y'all, you know, took a walk. It's good for yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally. But yeah, hope y'all have a good rest of your day.